Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja, and in this segment today we are going to discuss about unicorns proliferating despite the challenges of pandemic. So why all this is happening? What is the status of India with respect to unicorns, and around the globe what is the status of unicorns along with the challenges as well as the way forward? We will discuss it all. So you see that from the perspective of prelims, this is going to be of importance. What schemes are involved with it? From the perspective of mains, the analytical part is much more important. So for prelims, of course, we have to know what is a unicorn, about unicorns in India and the world, startup ecosystem, various schemes for prelims and mains both, and the issues as well as the way forward is with respect to the analytical part. And in the last of the segment, a question will be asked. So let's talk about the news. And mind you, this can span across GS mains paper second as well as third. So, number of unicorns during the pandemic last year touched a record of 44. And also, if we talk about what is the condition of unicorns in India, then 100 unicorns have been registered and their valuation is $300 billion. What are unicorns? Unicorns are something that have been a buzzword since 2013. And now, as we see since the year 2015, when the ecosystem for providing unicorns with a more approachable foundation, this has become a buzzword for India as well. Let us know about unicorns. What are these? These are basically, first criteria is they are privately held. They are venture capital backed startups. Okay, venture capital means that investors are pooling their money together in order to invest in these startups so that they can get a share in that or equity in that. So these venture capitals, they are basically very optimistic looking, forward looking. That is why they are able to invest in startups, because startups are very new. These are new business innovations that have come to fruition, and any startup which reaches a value of $1 billion is known as a unicorn. And it is not expressly linked to their current financial situation, but what is their growth potential. And investors and venture capitalists, their prism is the most important view to look towards the startups. From here only we get the definition. And since 2013, the credit of coining the word unicorn goes to American venture capitalist Aileen Lee. Okay, and she was basically studying about startups to become unicorn in her Welcome to the Unicorn Club, learning from billion-dollar startups. So since January 2003, those startups which were able to reach a valuation of $1 billion, 39 companies since 2013, she saw that 39 companies joined the Unicorn Club. And these particular companies were a rarity back then, not now, but back then it was a rarity, because very few companies or startups which had no base in the past, they could get the status of $1 billion startup. So this is something that was very important for us to understand the valuation and what is unicorn. Let's move on and talk about the next thing, that is unicorn in India. What is the status of unicorn in India and around the world? Now you see a record 44 unicorns last year during the pandemic was launched. During the pandemic, and 14 more unicorns were found anew in the 3 to 4 months of the current year. And Invest India, which is the government's national investment promotion and also facilitation agency, it has said that the year 2021, 2020, 2019, these saw the birth of the maximum number of Indian unicorns, with 44, 11 and 7 unicorns coming each year, every year. So despite the challenges of pandemic, what was there that helped these unicorns to proliferate? As you see, the status of the world with respect to unicorn, there are 500 plus unicorns in the United States of America. This is Alaska. Okay, 100 plus unicorns in China. China is our biggest competitor. Then 60 plus unicorns are proliferating in India, that is 100 of course, and 11 to 50 unicorns are in the countries of South America. You see certain countries, Europe, and 1 to 10 unicorns, very less in Mexico and many other countries of South America, and few in Europe. So you see India is doing much better than European nations with respect to, and certain South American nations with respect to the status of unicorn. And if we see that what is the status of unicorn pan globe, more than half of the unicorns are in the US and 180 are based in China as well as Hong Kong. It's a preliminary fact. Remember that. First is US, then China, and India is in the third place in the international unicorn ranking, which is followed by Germany, UK, and Germany. Now, Chinese artificial intelligence and technology company, which is ByteDance, remember this name, ByteDance, is the biggest of the bunch at a $140 billion valuation. And then comes Elon Musk, US-based venture SpaceX, which is valued at $100.3 billion. Chinese fashion retailer Shein, $100 billion. And out of the 10 biggest unicorns, 5 are based in the US and 2 hail from China. So these are packed with preliminary facts, as well as you can use these facts in your mains examination to get brownie points. Then with respect to India, I have provided you with this picture of the India's 100 unicorns, in which we have many companies that you must be using, like Nykaa is there, Meesho is there, Vroom is there, MobiKwik is also there, Zomato is there, Rebel, Quikr is there, as well as many other companies such as Zenoti, Zeta, Amagi. So these, Razorpay is also there. So these are the many companies that have achieved the status of unicorn. Moving on to the next segment, that is what is required for having a good unicorn ecosystem, or you can say startup ecosystem. First of all, we need to have technical skills in order to build a business. Then availability of capital is the most important. If there is no funding, this becomes a very huge roadblock for new startups and new companies to come into the market. What is the risk tolerance? Again, this is with respect to technical and hiring capabilities of a company plus the funding. Then what is the visible success? Motivation for motivation. Then collaborative culture, if companies can be merged together to become a much bigger company like ByteDance. Regulatory environment, the lesser the role of bureaucracy when it comes to entrepreneurship is there, the more the proliferation of startups is going to be there, because most of these startups, they come from the technical background. They're not something like the big companies have this knack of getting through the bureaucracy throughout their lifetime. For startups, it's not possible. For that only, we have to have a moderate regulatory framework, entrepreneurial culture, experienced mentors. All these are a part of ecosystem for startup. Then comes the other part. What happened post-pandemic and during the pandemic that helped the countries, this country, India, achieve a good status with respect to unicorns. So pre-pandemic, Indian economy was not very much, but still it was proliferating since 2015 to 2021. It was seen 2020. It was seen that the culture of unicorn or ecosystem startup was given a huge boost with respect to different schemes that the government took. And there was, of course, active government support with respect to the Mudra Yojana for MSMEs, providing them loans, low-cost loans. We had Startup India scheme, which was launched in the year 2016. And then favorable demography, which became a demography dividend for us to tap. So when there was favorability of demography, India is a young country which has a lot of entrepreneurial aspirations. That was also there. What happened during the pandemic? Digitization occurred. Digitization with respect to no contact during the pandemic, so that no transfer of infection can happen. That gave a wave to virtual reality, and that took the form of Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay. Again, getting these services by ordering on Zomato, or getting these services from ordering from Amazon or some other unicorn company, Meesho. So all these digitization wave occurred, and digitization penetration actually was boosted during the pandemic. I'll give you a very real life example. This is not related to unicorn, but something of a example that you can give. You can, of course, witness, not give. Whenever we are going to the market, supposedly we are going to the vegetable market. Now, most of the vendors of vegetable, they have a Paytm QR code that is displayed in front of them. This was aspired by the current government, but it was far from achieving if the pandemic was not there. So you see, digital penetration was boosted during this period, and this new startups, apart from profit making, they also had to make sure that they have a very deep rooted acceptance in their customers, because they are new in the market. So for that, they are extremely focused on their customers, and the customers are also tech friendly. So it gave a huge boost, especially to the urban area, to get used to such new entrepreneurship, such new markets. But rural area, of course, doesn't have that much of a penetration that the urban area has. So MSMEs did not achieve that much of success that the urban entrepreneurial area got. Okay, investment opportunities also risen because of the reason that digital services were getting much more boost than the offline services. Then we have Startup India scheme, which was launched in 2016, and MSME Samadhan. Samadhan, it is basically an online portal that took care of the delays that were made, delays of payment that were made to the MSME. So this was also there. Then schemes such as no or low interest loans, Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, that was launched during the, this was, Make in India was before the pandemic, Atmanirbhar Bharat was during the pandemic, so that India can become self-reliant. So that was in the last 12 months, they gave a huge boost. Then the Fund of Funds for Startup, which was launched by DPIIT. Okay, it was launched in 2016 with a corpus of 10,000 crore. This also helped during the pandemic. And this provides capital to SEBI registered alternative investment fund. These are known as daughter funds. Okay. And then these daughter funds, they invest money into growing Indian startups through equity and equity linked instruments. Alright, so stakeholder is also there. And SIDBI had reported that the private investment in alternative investment fund covered under the Fund of Funds for Startup have not been put on hold, or no decrease. There was also no decrease during the pandemic. That gave a huge boost to the startups. Moving on, if we talk about the 2020, the year 2020, 21% startups and MSMEs, they benefited from government scheme in 2020. So you can cite this example as well in your mains examination. Then a COVID resource center under Startup India was made separately, so that during the COVID or pandemic era, the proliferation of startups continue to happen. Okay, moving on. Now, not only that, but in Forbes, it has been said, not only in India, but many other countries such as France, US, Germany, many countries registered a growth in the startups during the pandemic era. Moving on. Now, this one also, COVID-19 Startup Assistance Scheme. This is Department of Science and Technology's startup scheme, you can say, to provide funding to the innovations happening in the science and technology department. Moving on. Now let's talk about the issues related. First, lack of business knowledge. Most of the entrepreneurs, they come from the background of technicalities and technical areas. So they do not know how to run the hiring culture. What should be the hiring culture? What kind of people should be hired? How to lead the team as a whole. First problem is that. So they need upgradation of skills. Digital divide, as I told you, the rural areas did not benefit as much as the urban areas because of the lack of digital penetration in the rural area. Startups are at a disadvantage compared to large companies when it comes to bureaucracy. How? Because bureaucracy is something that has a huge nexus with larger companies. So what happens when large companies need to take care of certain regulation, they can sail through. But new startups have a lot of problems, such as angel tax, which was launched in 2012 to take care of that money laundering doesn't happen in the name of startups. So for that as well, you see, bureaucracy plays a huge part currently, but now it has been reduced up to a very great extent. Communication with and retention of customers take time and effort, and this era of instant gratification does not set well with the startups. So if any startup is constantly focusing on consumers and to retain them, creating new and retaining the old, that also becomes a challenge. And there is a complex regulatory environment. Although online portals have been launched, but it still takes funding and a lot of time to get a startup basically started. Moving on to the next one, that is, what is the way forward? Now, integration with school curriculum, which has been envisaged in the National Education Policy of 2020, in the name of vocational training, they are also going to provide the entrepreneurial skills that are needed for startups. Then bridging the digital divide, which can be helped with the Digital Saksharta Abhiyan, so that digital literacy is not only constricted to urban conglomerates but rural areas as well. Promoting agri startups. Now, agriculture is something that is still not tapped enough. We had the farm bills, but of course, that couldn't sail through. And because of that, agri startups need to be taken care of now so that a proper social culture could be developed. That digital area is not something that is going to harm the agriculture, but it is going to actually benefit. Startups in high-end technology, innovation funding, investment, and private engagement by the government is a much more needed step here. All right, now let's move on to the mains-based question. What is a unicorn? And one unicorn startup, how was India able to produce unicorns at record level despite the pandemic? You have to write it in 250 words, okay? So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.